I live in a small town in Ohio with my younger brother Evan, who was 14. Our dad worked construction sites that were often deep in wooded areas outside town, sometimes more than half an hour away, and our mom worked evenings, so Evan and I were pretty independent. One cold December afternoon, Evan and I decided to go to the movies. A new horror movie had just come out, and even though it was rated for adults, we figured we'd be fine. We looked older than we were, acted confident, and no one questioned us. The theater was packed, and the movie had finally reached a tense moment when my phone suddenly vibrated loudly in my jacket pocket. Several people turned around, clearly annoyed. Mortified, I whispered to Evan that we should step outside. In my hurry, I stumbled on the stairs, nearly falling, which only made the attention worse. Once we were out in the hallway, I checked my phone. I had a missed call from my dad, followed by a text message. "Hey, can you bring me some food? The diner near the site is closed today." It didn't seem strange. He'd asked us to bring him lunch before when he was working late. Evan looked unsure, but didn't argue. We left the theater, went home to pack some food, and then drove out toward the wooded area where he said he was working. That stretch of land had always felt calm to me. Quiet roads, tall trees, and a small lake workers sometimes stopped by. As winter evenings go, it was already getting dark when we arrived. The sky was glowing orange behind the trees. I tried calling my dad to let him know we were there. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. I texted him instead, saying we were nearby. After a moment, the typing dots appeared. "Walk down the hill and meet me by the lake." We followed the path through the woods. At the edge of the water, we saw a man sitting on a bench, his back to us, wearing a dark hoodie. I called out my dad's name. He didn't move. Evan whispered that something felt wrong. My heart was pounding as I stepped closer and slowly pulled the hood back. It wasn't my dad. The man turned around, grinning, holding my dad's phone in his hand like he was proud of it. Before I could react, he lunged toward Evan. Evan screamed. I grabbed him and yanked him back, and we ran. I don't think either of us had ever run that fast. I could hear heavy footsteps behind us, getting closer. I didn't look back until we reached the car. I slammed the doors, locked them, and threw the car into reverse just as the man reached my window. We sped straight home. When we burst through the front door, both our parents were there. My dad looked confused as we frantically explained everything. That's when he told us his phone had been stolen earlier that day at work. He'd already reported it missing and left early. The police were called. They tracked the phone to the lake and recovered it, but the man was gone. We were told there wasn't much else they could do. I tried to convince myself it was over. Around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I can see your TV light from outside." My blood ran cold. My bedroom was on the second floor. I turned off the TV and listened. I heard movement outside my window. I pulled the blinds back just slightly and saw him standing there, smiling, pointing something up at me. The window shattered. Glass flew across my room as my parents rushed in. We locked ourselves in a bedroom while my mom called 911. Another loud bang came from downstairs before everything went silent. Police searched the house and the area but found nothing, until one officer checked my car. A small tracking device was hidden underneath. He was never caught. Months have passed, and he never came back. But I still think about how close we came, and how trusting one message almost cost us everything. I should start by saying that I have a hearing impairment, which makes certain things in life difficult to understand. Even so, I often replay this experience in my mind, wondering what happened and how I could have reacted differently. This all took place about a year ago. The holiday season had just ended, and I was trying to unwind from traveling and visiting family and friends. I live in a small suburban area, right next to a forest in southern Quebec. It's a quiet neighborhood where most people know one another, which I genuinely enjoy because it feels cozy and familiar. In winter, I like taking my dog, Monty, for walks in the forest. He's a Rottweiler Husky mix, perfect for the occasional run. The trails there are easy, nothing too challenging for casual walkers. I remember it was late afternoon. I had just finished lunch and decided to go for a walk to burn some calories with Monty. As always, he got excited the moment we turned the corner toward the forest entrance. It was cold for February. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, covering the paths with a smooth, white layer. I let Monty off his leash so he could explore freely. I noticed some yellow patches and footprints in the snow, showing that other people had already been walking their dogs. Most people walk in the morning since the sun sets so early. I didn't expect anyone around at that hour. After about 30 minutes, we reached a fork in the trail. One path looked untouched, so feeling a little adventurous, I chose it. I remembered the trails well, so I knew where I was going. The path led to a clearing, perfect for using the binoculars I'd gotten for Christmas to watch birds. While scanning the area, something caught my eye along the tree line. Through my binoculars, I saw a blue tarp and a small makeshift shelter. I was curious, but it was getting dark, and I needed to head home. Monty and I started back. He ran ahead as usual, but something felt off. He was unusually alert, sniffing the ground more than I'd ever seen before. Looking down at the snow, I froze. There was a set of footprints much larger than my own. I even checked my boots to compare them to the tracks. They didn't match mine. The path had no other forks, so whoever it was must have passed me at some point. I assumed it happened while I was using the binoculars. That made sense at the time, so I tried not to overthink it. Darkness was falling, but I could still see the trail. Suddenly, Monty stopped and barked sharply at something behind me. I turned and saw him. A tall man, probably over 6 feet, wearing dark snow pants and a white camo jacket, standing just a meter away. He didn't move, just stood there with his hands in his pockets. I didn't recognize him, so I assumed he was a hiker or visitor from out of town. He seemed to be muttering something, but poor lighting and my inability to read lips made it impossible to tell. I couldn't even tell if he spoke English or French. I realized I hadn't brought my phone and felt foolish. I tried to signal that I'm hard of hearing and that it was late. I got home fully dark outside. I followed my usual evening routine, not thinking much of the encounter until later that night when something happened that still haunts me. Monty woke me by licking my hand, something he usually does in the morning. I checked my phone. It was 3 a.m. A message from a neighbor asked if everything was okay. They said Monty had been barking like crazy. I looked up and saw that Monty wasn't in my room. I went downstairs and found him barking hysterically at the patio door. My vision was blurry as I tried to see what was happening. I focused just as the motion sensor light flicked on. My heart sank. The man from the forest was standing in my backyard. I didn't hesitate. I stepped back and quickly texted 911. I've never texted so fast in my life. I grabbed the machete from under my bed and returned to my room with Monty. I'm not tall, but I have martial arts training. I know the best fight is often no fight at all. I stayed there, guarding Monty and myself until the police arrived. My heart was racing as I sat opposite the door, Monty beside me. Soon, he leapt and barked violently at the bedroom door. My hands were soaked with sweat as shadows moved beneath the door. It looked like the man was about to break in. Those were the longest minutes of my life. Luckily, the door never opened. When the police arrived, I explained everything while they inspected the property. The patio glass was shattered, but nothing was missing, and everything else was intact. They found the backyard gate open. It leads to the forest, where they believe the man disappeared. I told them about the shelter I had seen. I stayed with a family friend for a few days while the door was repaired. I never received a follow-up from the police. Since that day, I stick to walking Monty on the roads, avoiding the forest and trying not to think about that night. It was winter of 2021. If I had to sum up my day in one word, chaos. Work had completely gone off the rails. This was peak COVID, so I was stuck working from home, bouncing between Zoom calls that never seemed to end. I was supposed to drive upstate that evening to meet my extended family at my parents' house. But instead, I got trapped in a meeting that dragged on nearly 3 hours longer than planned. By the time I finally logged off, everyone else had already been there for over an hour. And that didn't even count the long drive ahead of me. Before leaving, I poured myself 2 full cups of coffee to take on the road. I had a feeling I'd need them. The moment I opened my front door, I knew this trip was going to be a nightmare. The wind had picked up, snow was coming down hard, and the streets looked barely touched by plows. There was already a thick blanket of snow covering everything, and the forecast said it would keep falling well into the night. On residential roads, I couldn't go much faster than 25 without risking sliding. To make things worse, my car at the time was a beat-up old Hyundai. It handled like garbage in bad weather and didn't even have anti-lock brakes. Not exactly what you want in a snowstorm. Still, once I reached the highway, I did what I always did. I sped up. I pushed it close to 70, which, looking back, was incredibly stupid given the conditions. I finally pulled into my parents' driveway around 9 p.m. Dinner had already started, but I hadn't missed too much. A few drinks, some catching up, gift exchanges, time blurred together. I was so focused on seeing relatives I hadn't talked to in a while that I completely forgot I still had to drive home. By the time I said my goodbyes, it was after midnight. Another foot of snow had piled up outside. I was tired, a little buzzed, and eager to get back to my own bed. I told myself I was fine to drive. Not drunk, just exhausted. As I headed toward the highway, I noticed how eerily empty the roads were. No cars, no lights, just falling snow and darkness. That's when I made a terrible decision. On one long stretch of road, I pushed my speed up to around 40. As I approached a curve, I felt the back end of my car break loose. I tried to stay calm. I'd skidded before. I turned into it, downshifted, did everything I was supposed to do. But the car didn't slow down. Panic took over. The next thing I knew, I was off the road and slammed straight into a tree. The airbag exploded in my face. For a few seconds, I just sat there, stunned, ears ringing, heart pounding. Miraculously, I wasn't badly hurt. My car, however, was destroyed. The hood was buried deep in a snowbank wrapped around the tree. There was no chance of getting it back onto the road. I called roadside assistance, and they told me help was coming. But because of the storm, it could take up to 40 minutes. I was stranded on a deserted road, surrounded by forest, with no houses anywhere nearby. So I called my parents. My dad said he'd come get me and wait until the tow truck arrived. That gave me some relief, at least. As I sat there waiting, the wind howled outside, rocking the car. Then I heard something else. Footsteps, crunching slowly through the snow. They sounded far off at first, but they were unmistakable. I opened my driver's door and stepped out, peering over the roof of my car into the darkness. The footsteps stopped. Instead, I heard something else. A strange, wet noise, almost like something being dragged or chewed. I focused on the tree line and thought I saw movement. It was pitch black, but I was sure there was someone standing there. I called out, "Hello?" The sound stopped immediately. No answer. No movement. After a few tense seconds, I got back into my car and locked the doors, my heart racing. Less than a minute later, the footsteps returned, closer this time. Then something struck the passenger side window. Hard. I couldn't see anything. Every window was coated in snow. Against my better judgment, I got out again and checked around the car. That's when I saw them. Boot prints in the snow. Not just a few. They circled my car completely, then trailed away from the passenger side and into the woods. Mixed in with the prints were drops of blood. My stomach twisted. I opened the glove compartment and pulled out my 9mm. Holding it tight, I followed the tracks into the trees. At that point, I was convinced someone was messing with me. As I moved deeper, the blood became heavier, smeared across the snow. Then I saw something lying ahead, just beyond the tree line. A dark shape against the white ground. I prayed it wasn't human. I turned on my phone's flashlight. It was a deer, or what was left of one. Its stomach had been torn open and its head was gone completely, as if ripped off. I scanned the area but couldn't find the head anywhere. That was enough. I turned around and hurried back to my car. When I opened the driver's door, I nearly threw up. Sitting in my seat was the deer's severed head, positioned upright, facing me. I ran. I sprinted down the road until I saw headlights approaching. I waved my arms and shouted, still clutching the gun like a lunatic. The car stopped. It was my dad. He was furious and confused, demanding to know what was wrong. I climbed into the passenger seat and told him everything. He didn't believe a word of it, but I insisted we go back. When we returned, the footprints were still there. The deer's head was gone. All that remained was a large, dark stain soaked into my seat. The body of the deer was missing, too. Only drag marks leading into the woods remained. That's when my dad finally went quiet. The tow truck arrived soon after and hauled my car away. My dad asked if I wanted to call the police, but I was completely drained. I just wanted to go home and sleep. I knew reporting it wouldn't change anything. To this day, I don't know who or what was out there in the woods that night. Maybe it was meant as a warning, or maybe something far worse had been planned.